This is the most famous underdog story in human history. A shepherd boy, armed with nothing but a sling and his faith, versus a 9-foot giant. A champion clad in bronze, wielding a spear like a weaver's beam. David versus Goliath. For millennia, we have told this story as the ultimate parable of courage, a lesson about the power of faith to overcome impossible odds. We are told this story to inspire us, to give us hope when we face our own giants. We are told it was a miracle. But what if this interpretation, the one we've been taught since childhood, is wrong? What if the lesson isn't about faith, but about strategy? What if it's not a story of hope, but a cold, hard, analytical masterclass in how the weak defeat the strong? Welcome to Hindsight Lore. Our premise is simple. The past is a blueprint, and the story of David versus Goliath is not a parable about miracles. It is, perhaps, the single greatest document ever written on the art of asymmetric warfare. We misunderstand this story because we are blinded by the most obvious detail. We focus on the size of the fighters when we should be focusing on the rulers of the engagement. We see a boy versus a giant, and we assume the boy is the underdog. But what if David wasn't the underdog ATAL? What if, by the rules of the fight he chose to engage in, his victory wasn't just possible? It was a statistical certainty. Let's deconstruct the battlefield. The Philistine army and the Israelite army are at a stalemate in the valley of Elah. This is not total war. This is ritual warfare, a common practice in the ancient world. To avoid massive bloodshed, each side selects a single champion. The winner of this duel determines the winner of the entire conflict. The Philistines send Goliath, and he is a terrifying spectacle. The text is specific. He is over 9 feet tall, wearing a bronze helmet, a coat of mail weighing 125 pounds. He has bronze greaves, a bronze javelin, and an iron spearhead that weighs 15 pounds. Goliath is not just a man. He is a system. He is the apex predator of a specific kind of combat, close quarters, one-on-one, strength-on-strength dueling. He is, in modern terms, a walking tank. For 40 days, he paralyzes the Israelite army with fear because they all accept the premise of the fight. They believe that to defeat Goliath, they must find someone who can fight him on HIS terms. They are searching for a smaller Goliath. They are searching for a warrior. And then David arrives, a shepherd boy, bring food for his brothers. He hears the challenge, and he doesn't hear what the soldiers hear. The soldiers hear a threat. David sees an opportunity. He sees a large, slow-moving target. He volunteers. King Saul, desperate, tries to make David fit the mold. He offers David his OWN armor, his helmet, his sword. And here, in this moment, David makes his first and most important strategic decision. He refuses. I cannot go in these, he says, for I am not used to them. This is not humility. This is intelligence. This is the first law of asymmetric warfare. David is not just rejecting the armor. He is rejecting the entire rulebook. He is refusing to play Goliath's game. He walks onto the battlefield with no armor, no helmet, no sword. In his hand, he carries a shepherd's staff and a sling. To Goliath, this is a profound insult. He is the ultimate warrior, and they have sent a boy with a stick. Am I a dog? He bellows, that you come to me with sticks? Goliath sees a shepherd. He sees a toy. He is preparing for a duel of swords. David is preparing for a battle of projectiles. Goliath's perception of the threat is fatally flawed. He is so trapped in his own definition of warrior that he cannot recognize the weapon that is about to kill him. What if David wasn't the underdog at all? What if, by the rules of the fight he chose to engage in, his victory wasn't just possible? It was a statistical certainty. Goliath is the incumbent, the established power, the industry leader, and he's suffering from the incumbent's paradox. The very things that make you a giant are the same things that make you slow, inflexible, and predictable. Goliath's strength is his armor. His power is his spear. But this strength comes at a cost. That 125-pound coat of mail, it makes him slow. That massive spear, it is useless beyond arm's reach. He is optimized for one scenario, an enemy coming to him for a duel. His entire system is built on a single assumption that the challenger will play by the established rules. This is the fundamental vulnerability of every Goliath in history. They become trapped by their own success. Think of Blockbuster Video in the 1990s. Blockbuster was Goliath. Their armor was their 9,000 physical stores. Their spear was their optimized supply chain for physical tapes and DVDs. They dominated the world of home entertainment. Their entire system was built on the assumption that renting a movie meant driving to a store. Then, a David called Netflix showed up. At first, Netflix didn't challenge the stores. It used a different weapon, DVDs by mail. It attacked Blockbuster on a different battlefield, and the mailbox. Blockbuster's armor is expensive. Physical stores suddenly became a liability. They became a massive overhead cost, a chain anchoring them to a dying model. When streaming arrived, the fight was already over. Netflix was pure agility. Blockbuster was a slow-moving giant, crushed under the weight of its own armor. Think of Kodak. Kodak invented the digital camera in 1975. They were Goliath, but they buried the technology. Why? Because their entire global empire was built on selling film. Their chemical, paper, and processing plants were their armor. They were so optimized to win the OLD war that they refused to fight the new one, even one they had invented. Their strength became their fatal weakness. Goliath, Blockbuster, Kodak. The pattern is identical. They are powerful, yes, but they are also brittle. They are optimized for a predictable future, and they are psychologically incapable of responding to a threat that doesn't look like them. Goliath was prepared for a warrior, a mirror image of himself. But David didn't show up as a warrior. He showed up as a projectile specialist. Why is changing the category of the fight the single most powerful move an underdog can make? ASYMMA T-warfare is the core of this. Let's define it precisely. It is not about matching strength. It is about using a different kind of strength to make the opponent's strength irrelevant. It is not fighting better. It is fighting differently. David's playbook has two core tactics. We've seen the first. Tactic 1. Refuse the rules. By rejecting Saul's armor, David refused to be a small Goliath. He chose to fight on his own terms. This leads to Tactic 2. Weaponize agility and technology. We, in the modern day, think of a sling as a child's toy. This is a fatal misreading of history. In the ancient world, a sling was a devastating military weapon. Ballistic tests show that a skilled slinger could hurl a stone at over 100 kilometers per hour. The impact force was equivalent to a .45 caliber handgun. These were not pebbles. They were specialized projectiles, often lead or iron, designed for maximum impact. Goliath, in his heavy armor, is a close quarters fighter. He is a swordsman. David is a ranged weapon specialist. This is not a fair fight. It's a specialist with a high-powered rifle facing a man with a knife in an open field. Goliath is waiting for a sword fight, and David brings a gun. David uses his agility to maintain distance. Goliath's weak point, and he uses his technology, the sling, to attack Goliath's only vulnerability, the small patch of exposed skin on his forehead. David doesn't try to beat Goliath's strength. He makes Goliath's strength useless. This is the David playbook, and it is used by every successful insurgent an innovator in modern history. This is a brilliant strategy of David, played out in the digital age. In the late 1990s, eBay was Goliath. It was the marketplace. It had its own payment system, BillPoint. eBay was the fortified armor giant. A tiny startup called PayPal came along. If PayPal had tried to be Goliath, if they had tried to build a competing auction website, they would have been crushed. That would be playing Goliath's game. Instead, PayPal became the sling. They didn't build a marketplace. They built a tool, a simple email-based payment system. And where did they use it? Inside eBay. They became the weapon of choice for eBay's own sellers. They were agile. They were fast. They were easier to use than eBay's own clunky, slow BillPoint system. Goliath's spear was faced with an impossible choice. They couldn't ban PayPal because their own sellers, the source of their power, relied on it. PayPal was using eBay's own strength, its massive user base, against it. PayPal didn't attack the castle walls. It snuck inside and became the preferred currency within the castle. This is a pure asymmetric victory. PayPal didn't fight eBay's war. It changed the battlefield from auction platform to payment utility. It made eBay's own payment system irrelevant. And in 2002, the inevitable happened. Goliath bought David. eBay acquired PayPal for $1.5 billion, simply to end the fight. So David changed the rules. He changed the technology. He changed the battlefield. But there is a third, deeper psychological weapon he used. One that Bray Rabbit would have recognized. How do you defeat an enemy before the first stone is even thrown? Let's look at the exchange before the fight. Goliath roars, "Come here, and I'll give your flesh to the birds and the wild animals." This is a standard physical threat. David's response is not a simple "I accept." His response is a masterpiece of psychological warfare. He replies, "You come against me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hands, and I'll strike you down and cut off your head." David does two brilliant things here. First, he seizes the narrative. He reframes the entire conflict. This is no longer a physical duel of strong versus weak. This is a moral duel of righteous versus profane, God's chosen versus the uncircumcised Philistine. Second, he enrages Goliath. By mocking Goliath's gods and his strength, David isn't just being brave, he's being smart. An angry fighter is a sloppy fighter. An angry fighter is an emotional, predictable fighter. David wants Goliath to charge, to abandon any semblance of caution. He is, as we say today, getting in his head. This is the same tactic we see in challenger brands in the modern world. They don't win on features, they win on narrative. When Apple launched the Macintosh, its Goliath was IBM. IBM was the industry. They were big blue. They were the logical, safe corporate choice. Apple could not win a war of spreadsheets and processing power. IBM was the Goliath of mainframes. So Apple launched its famous 1984 Super Bowl ad. The ad didn't show a computer. It showed a dystopian, gray, conformist world of mindless drones. The IBM's world being shattered by a colorful female athlete. The tagline, "On January 24th, Apple Computer will introduce Macintosh." And you'll see why 1984 won't be like 1984. Apple didn't sell product. They sold rebellion. They reframed the battle. It wasn't Apple's computer versus IBM's computer. It was individuality versus conformity. Freedom versus Big Brother. Like David, Apple seized the narrative. They turned IBM's greatest strength, its size, its corporate dominance, into a psychological weakness. They made IBM the symbol of the problem, and themselves the symbol of the solution. That is how you win before the stone is thrown. The story of David versus Goliath provides a perfect, timeless blueprint for the insurgent. But what about the Goliath? If you are the incumbent, the leader, the giant, how do you avoid this fate? This is the Goliath dilemma, the paradox of success. The very things that made you successful, your size, your processes, your armor, are the same things that are now making you vulnerable. Your success makes you arrogant. You expect the next fight to look just like the last one. Your success makes you slow. Your bureaucracy, your shareholders, your legacy systems, your blockbuster stores prevent you from pivoting. This connects directly to the hindsight lore we found in the myth of Icarus. The failure of the giant, like the failure of Icarus, is often a structural failure, not a moral one. Goliath had to fight that way. His body and armor demanded it. Blockbuster had to protect its stores. Its business model demanded it. Kodak had to protect its film division. Its shareholders demanded it. They were all trapped by the physics of their own success. The hindsight lore is a true strategic lesson of David versus Goliath. Is twofold. First, for the David, the insurgent, the underdog. The giant's game is designed for the giant to win. Do not play it. Refuse the armor. Redefine the rules. Change the battlefield. Weaponize your agility, your technology, your narrative. Do not try to match the giant's strength. Make their strength irrelevant. Second, for the Goliath, the incumbent, the leader, you will be attacked asymmetrically. It is not a matter of if, but when. The challenger who defeats you will not look like you. They will not fight like you. They will look like an insult, a toy, a shepherd boy with a stick. Your greatest danger is not the insurgent. Your greatest danger is your own arrogance. You must cultivate hindsight. You must be willing to question your own success. You must be willing to disrupt yourself before a David does it for you. The story of David versus Goliath is not a story about the size of the underdog. It's a story about the intelligence of the strategist. The moment David walked onto that field, refused the armor, and picked up a stone, the fight of swords was over. Goliath just didn't know it yet.